This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. I'm back. I'm ready to go. We had to do a little preview episode because we had a ton of things to say.
A lot to say.
I was watching while I was away. I thought Dan did a great job filling in.
A great job.
But I'm really happy to be back.
I'm happy you're back.
The Mets are going to the NLCS for the first time since 2015. It was after Francisco Lindor delivered a Game 4 Grand Slam to knock out the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh.
Wow.
We talked about it.
Wow. The Dodgers eliminated the San Diego Padres. Parties. The Padres are gone. The Dodgers are in. And that was with a Game 5 win in Los Angeles. So the matchup is set. And at this point, we just want to tell you guys what we think about it and preview it and tell you what's up. How's it hanging?
Yes. Look, the New York Mets going to the NLCS. Who would have thought coming into this as the third NL wild card? Here we are, folks. It's been quite a wild ride. We've been with you the whole way. You've been with us. Thanks for being here. The Mets, I mean, look, this is what we said, right? We said, at least I said, I think you agreed, Dan agreed, that we wanted the Dodgers. Now, does that scare me from a perspective of every time you want something as a Mets fan, it turns out to be the wrong answer? Yes. Could the Dodgers, the Dodgers, could the Dodgers, sorry.
We're both rusty right now. I don't know what's going on. It's late at night, man.
It is late at night. Could the Dodgers still smoke the Mets in 4 and then we'll sound like idiots? Sure. But you know what? I stand by my choice. I think the Padres, a lot of this for me in the postseason, beyond the stats and the facts and the figures, goes into energy and which teams have that energy momentum. To me, the Padres had it and the Dodgers didn't, at least until they won the NLDS. And now, obviously, they have more of it. But I stand by my choice. Thank you.
I agree with that, but just because I never got the chance to say this, that was not my choice. I wanted to play the Padres.
Okay.
Just because I felt like I actually liked some of the drama when you thought about seasons prior.
Horrifying. No, it's horrifying.
But it was it was juicy, man. It was gossip, and I really felt like and I liked it because I felt like it really it could have ignited a flame. I felt. I honestly, every single time, I just have to say it, every single time I think about 2022 and the whole thing, all I can think about is that one dude's wet ear. I'm gonna be honest. That's all I can think about. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
In one of those games in the playoffs, you guys will know in the comments who I'm talking about because I think it was a pitcher, but like they literally had to check his hands for sticky stuff and whatever because he literally had the wettest ear ever.
Oh,
like
wait,
it
no,
was
I
shiny.
do. I do.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Literally, that's all I can think
don't
about
remember his
whenever
name.
I think about 2022.
Yeah.
I just had to get it off my chest. But yeah, anyway, the Padres will the Dodgers sent them on their way, on their merry way home.
Yeah. And as we know, the Dodgers have been a powerhouse in recent years, at least up until the playoff point, right, throughout the regular season. So this certainly is no matchup to sneeze at by any means.
No.
The Mets, of course, this season going 2-4 against this team. So there's that.
Right. Also, one of those games was the Jorge Lopez, worst game in MLB. All
team
y'all
in-
remember.
Everybody remembers worst team in the whole effing MLB.
Like
and here we
that-
are. And
that-
that's part of the documentary.
I was just going to say that. I was literally just going to say that's like one of the first shots is a slow-mo shot. The glove goes up in the air.
Oh, the soundbite of the worst team in the whole, it's great. Right before that is rock bottom, nobody in the ballpark. I got the whole documentary lined up page by page. If anybody wants to see it, let me know.
When we are done with this podcast, which hopefully is for not a long time, or is
A long
what's
time
going
away.
on? Hello?
No,
Hello? Hello? Anyway, what I was going to say is I really think that we should we should create that because we have a vision for it and we could probably
Such a
write
vision.
it if somebody else could kind of edit it and cut it. We could get a whole team together.
And some people on Mets Twitter have been cooking on some very short, condensed 3-minute versions. Mets Twitter has been popping off lately. I mean, the hype videos that I've been seeing, the best, just the best.
Oh my God.
They give me the chills. I can't watch some of those videos without genuinely and honestly getting emotional. And I am going to go out on a limb and I am going to say it. If the New York Mets get to the promised land, I should say, because I'm actually not going to say it because I'm superstitious like that.
Don't say it. Don't say
If
it.
they get to the promised land, that's all I'll say. You know what I mean. Genuinely one of the better sports stories in modern sports, at least modern baseball history. If you disagree with me, you're wrong.
And that
Sorry.
if you disagree with me, don't say it. The best of those videos, in case anyone saw it, the best of those videos so far is the one with the Frank Sinatra song. Is it called My Way?
My Way. There's an In the Air Tonight too. That's fantastic.
That had me tearing up.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, I don't think I should be this emotional.
No.
Maybe it's just an emotional song. It was a lot.
Sports.
Okay, listen, let's get into it. I'll tell you what I feel that the Dodgers have, and what I've seen and what I've read.
Sure.
Is an impressive bullpen. They of course also have Shohei Ohtani, and I think that's something that you need to keep in mind. And last but not least, and perhaps most importantly, they have the opportunity to go up against Edwin Diaz on a bad Edwin Diaz night.
Right.
Those, I think, are the three things that are going for them. When I say the bullpen,
what do you mean by the opportunity?
I mean that I consider that a strength for the Dodgers, because if Edwin Diaz goes out there and he's not himself, then I think that's a weakness that can be exploited and will be exploited.
You're putting that in the pros column for the Dodgers, if you are the Dodgers.
Instead of the weaknesses column for the Mets.
Yeah.
And partially that's because I had so many strengths for the Mets that I just needed something else to write. But I really do believe that that's true. And I get it. I also heard that Edwin Diaz, prior to this, was saying that he is changing up his mindset for this upcoming series.
I should hope so.
He actually said on SNY that he felt he's trying to be too perfect and wants to shift his mindset. He's focusing on shifting back to his old mentality, which was trust your stuff and go after the hitters. I appreciate all that. I know how hard this mental game is. But yeah, I'm gonna put that as a strength. I know we've said it all season long, but it has always felt like that could be the make or break factor. And I think at this point, that's not a secret. Like, I think if you're another team and you're scouting and you're watching these games and you're seeing the pros and the cons of the New York Mets, you're seeing that getting in his head is something that can benefit you.
Yeah.
And that if early on there are some struggles there, it's going to be difficult for him to battle his way out of it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, and I think that the Dodgers will know that. Like you said, I think every team in baseball knows that at this point, that Edwin Diaz is a bit of a flight risk. There's no other way to put it. I also
There is another way to put it, but that was more beautiful than anything I could have thought of.
I'm here all night, as always. Anyways, I also would like to point out, as always, quite literally and figuratively.
Like, we're here all night.
All night. The Dodgers pitching staff right now is, I don't want to say it's gassed. I don't know if I feel as though I have the qualifications to say that, but the Dodgers have relied pretty heavily on throwing 6 or 7 pitchers in each game through the NLDS. You saw them take out their starters early. You saw them really mix and match pitching, and that's a luxury that they are not going to have in a 7-game series when they're trying to have, obviously in a 7-game series, you need more pitchers the whole way through. You need your starters for longer. So that strategy, I think, is something that could definitely hurt them.
And it is I'm happy that you brought that up, because that's sort of what I meant when I say an impressive bullpen. The Dodgers have essentially been navigating this postseason with 3 starting pitchers. That's the rotation they have. Beyond that, they have 6 or 7 bullpen guys who, to your point, they're whipping in. Now, the pro to that is they do have a strong bullpen. They do have guys who they can rely on. But if you're the Mets, the way that you sort of combat that is the sooner that you can be getting these bullpen guys in each game, the better.
Absolutely.
Because at some point, the gas is going to run out.
Absolutely.
Like, if you can gas them, if you can tire them out throughout this series, it's gonna be tough. Like, how do you quick fix that? You really can't, you know? Like, once you're in that hole, you're in that hole. We've seen that. We know that even from sometimes with the Mets.
And worth pointing out, the Dodgers were forced into a Game 5 situation that the Mets were not forced into in the NLCS.
100%.
So that's a relevant part of this too. But I want
necessary.
Yes. I want to point out one of the Dodgers reporters. His name is Alden Gonzalez. I actually don't know if he specifically reports on the Dodgers, but he works for ESPN in Los Angeles. He laid out a potential Dodgers rotation for this series.
Let's hear it.
Game 1, Jack Flaherty. Game 2, Walker Buehler. Game 3, bullpen. Game 4, Yamamoto. And then Game 5, Flaherty, Buehler, bullpen. Yamamoto was expected to remain on 5 days rest, but Flaherty can come back for Game 5 if he's on normal rest. So that's a big piece of this, right? That the Dodgers had to use Yamamoto in Game 5 of the NLDS. So now you're looking at him in like a Game 4. You're looking at some potential, maybe, we'll see what they do, bullpen games for the Dodgers. I mean, I think if you're the Dodgers, that's not exactly the spot that you want to be in, to be throwing bullpen games in the NLCS.
No, and that's like those 3 names you just mentioned. That's who we're talking about. That's it. That's what they got. So yeah, I think that is absolutely necessary to think about. And again, I also think it's worth pointing out that, and I've seen a lot of conversation about this on Twitter. I would like to know more about why this is, and I haven't confirmed it yet. Have you seen on Twitter that it's difficult for some reason based on some other players. Like if you look up some players and you look up their stats right now on like, I believe it's MLB.com. It could be ESPN. I'll look to be sure. You know what I'm going to say. You can see all the postseason stats. But if for some reason you look up Shohei Ohtani, you're just seeing his stats throughout the entire season.
Weird.
And people are saying, is that because he has not, I'm never going to I'm never going to say he's always contributing.
Yeah.
But I think compared to the normal level he's at, his postseason hasn't necessarily been what people expected.
Surely a conspiracy? Does that correlate? I don't know. Maybe
it is. I'm not saying I literally. That's why I led with that.
Yeah.
Like this is a podcast. That's why I feel okay to just sometimes say I have not confirmed any of that. I just find that interesting, and I'm genuinely asking the group. Like if anybody knows why that's happening, I would really like to know because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think that in general is worth pointing out. Like Shohei Ohtani, and I get it that that's not the only weapon, but like that is the weapon, and I do feel like on any given night he can change things. If his postseason performance hasn't quite been up to par based on what he's usually able to do, that feels relevant to me compared to a Mets team who truly one of their strengths is at this point, I do feel confident saying they're 1 through 9.
Yeah.
Like there are very few holes in this batting lineup. Like it's going to be tough because on any given night, any given person can be the hero.
Yes.
How do you fight against a team like that? And who do you try and target? And what do you do? It's going to be a tough situation. I think there are some hard conversations that have to happen on the Dodgers side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be interesting to see how they go about that. I think I think this matchup, right? We can talk about that in a second, but great for baseball, right? MVP versus MVP, Ohtani versus Lindor. I know not technically, but essentially the two MVPs of the NL, if there were 2 awards this year, going against each other in the NLCS. Let's get into the Mets. While we're on the topic of rotation, let's get into the Mets rotation for a second. They announced today that KODAI Senga will start Game 1 tomorrow. He is expected to go about 3 innings. Sean Manaea will start Game 2, followed by Severino, Quintana, and then back to Senga, Manaea, Severino. David Peterson is available in the Senga starts. I would like to hear your opinion because Dan and I shared the same opinion on the KODAI Senga thing. Now, I think KODAI Senga is great. I actually think he's a great weapon. I'm so happy he came back for the postseason. I do not love starting KODAI Senga in Game 1 for 2 reasons. A, it taxes the bullpen immediately. I know that's why you have David Peterson and Jose Butto and some of those guys available for long relief. I understand. But it's still, no matter what, if you're only anticipating your starter to go 3 innings, you are accepting the fact that your bullpen is behind in Game 1. There's that. And then 2, it also gives Sean Manaea Game 2. If you give him Game 1, there's a potential. I mean, you know what I mean? It bumps everybody back a turn. That's why I don't love it, and I don't know what role I want KODAI Senga in, because I think that in a bullpen that at times falters, he could be really valuable in a more long relief role. I think Dan brought up the idea of as a closer, they're not going to take Edwin Diaz's job. I see Dan's point. It is a good point. I think KODAI Senga could be good as a closer if he ever decided to go that route. It just seems a little far-fetched.
Not now.
I don't love the Senga 3 innings thing. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think all of the things that you bring up are true. It is definitely possible that he could, come in more of that bullpen role. Do I think there's any version of the story in this direct postseason that it's just not going to happen? Like they're going to stick with what they've done. Yeah. I mean, as relief, I guess I can see that. I think it must be hard though. I mean, up until this point, and I know he's not fully back yet and whatnot, but like he is a starter. So to mess anything up or to change anything too drastically honestly feels like a risk. I would trust Peterson more in sort of any role as far as being able to be flexible. But I know what you mean. The only other pro I see to it is honestly like a lot of people haven't seen Senga in a long while. And if he is really pitching well and the ghost fork ball is rocking and rolling, like he really is a hard pitcher to get a hit off of. And who's to say that if he was pitching great that he couldn't potentially go a little longer? I understand that he's gonna be, it is weird. It is definitely not typical.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For some reason, I do actually sort of like that because I feel like from a hitter's perspective, it kind of messes the whole thing up.
I agree that I like that he hasn't really faced any of the league this year, right? He was hurt all year.
Right.
I also do think the Mets try to cater to, like you mentioned, like he's comfortable as a starter. We saw them last year go the 6-day rotation because of it. They try to cater to KODAI Senga and his desires a little bit, which I think, is fair, right? The guy did have a big adjustment just coming over here. But yeah, I just, to me, it's a slippery slope. And again, this is the negative Mets fan in me talking as usual. But you have KODAI Senga tomorrow, right? Say Senga has a great 3 innings, okay?
Okay, let's say it.
All right. Then you bring in David Peterson. That's the plan for some long relief. A guy who was a starter all year long can certainly give you innings. On the hypothetical instance where David Peterson comes out for the 4th inning or the 5th inning, but you're really in trouble if it's the 4th, and doesn't have it, all of a sudden you are fighting a creek you're upstream without a paddle. Like if David Peterson, which is your option for that long relief, doesn't have it, now all of a sudden you got to go to the rest of the bullpen, and you're really getting, I think it's very reliant on Peterson coming in to eat up those innings. If not Peterson, then Buto. If no one can eat innings for you, is my point. Say Peterson isn't on it, Buto, whatever your choice is, and you got to go inning by inning, then all of a sudden you've used 6 guys in the bullpen for 1 inning tonight. Nobody's on rest. You got a problem.
You do have a problem. The other side of the coin with that is if they do happen to both perform well, it's an interesting situation, I think, from the hitter standpoint, especially because Peterson, and this is something I thought about earlier, is a lefty. And the numbers show that Shohei Ohtani, as well as some of the other Dodgers players, including Freddie Freeman, if his ankle will allow him to play, don't hit well against lefties. That also makes me feel like I'd like to see it. I don't know. Again, it's not traditional, but I sort of like the variety. I'm comfortable with it. I don't know why exactly I'm comfortable with it. Perhaps it's just a feeling. Perhaps it is some of the numbers and the things I've looked up today, but
sure.
I actually am not mad at it. I'd really like to see the way that it plays out, and I'm to the point where I trust Mendoza and the decisions that he's making.
I agree.
If Senga is available, then we got to use him somehow. He needs to be a part of it if he's really ready and at 100%. There's really no reason not to have him in there in some capacity.
And we've seen Mendoza make educated, good decisions all year long, as we've said on this podcast. So, listen, we hope it works out. Something else I want to bring up, because the NLCS roster comes out tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, ahead of Game 1, is the Mets have a little bit of a debacle on their hands on who's going to be on this roster, because Jeff McNeil is trying to launch a comeback. Today he played in the Arizona Fall League for the 2nd straight day. Carlos Mendoza, in his press conference today, did not say what his role will be, only that he is likely to make the roster if he is healthy. So I imagine this is a decision they are making tonight or early tomorrow morning. And if he makes that roster, look, I am solely in the camp that if Jeff McNeil is good to go, you got to leave somebody else off of this NLCS roster, and I think it's a bullpen arm, and I think it's Adam Ottavino, because we've seen Adam Ottavino and Danny Young be the 2 guys that are not being used in the bullpen, but I think Ottavino is the clear choice there, just matchup dependent. The Mets have enough relievers who can give you that long inning relief, right? David Peterson, Buto, even a Tyler McGill we haven't mentioned yet. Ottavino has not been used. Did he throw a pitch in the NLDS? I'm not even sure if he did. Maybe it was few and far between. I think what's more valuable in this situation is getting another position player in there, keeping the speed, the defense for late game situations, and I think Luis Angel Acuna should be on that roster as well. I think he's a valuable pinch runner, and I think his defense is valuable late in games as well.
I agree that Acuna should be on it. I would not be upset to see, Ottavino or someone getting bumped, but honestly, I'm actually not really a huge Jeff McNeil proponent at this point at this time. Honestly, I am comfortable with who they have out there now. I think they have performed just fine without him. And honestly, if he was left off the roster, I would understand it. I don't know why I feel like tussling with you on this stuff tonight, but honestly, I would understand it. I'm so comfortable with who they have in there as far as position players and as far as even some of the speed you mentioned and all that. Like guys like Marte, like they put in Bader in that position sometimes. They have those guys. I really didn't feel like yes, he was heating up a little bit at some point. But like this is somebody who, when we talk about all these guys in the 1 through 9 and the vibes, the whimsy and the fun, he was really not somebody who ever contributed to any of that. And look how far they've gotten without him. Honestly, I could do without him. I wouldn't cry for a moment or shed one single tear if he wasn't on the roster. I really wouldn't.
See, okay, I was extremely anti-Jeff McNeil the first half of this season when he literally could not buy a hit, like literally could not buy one.
And I'm not anti.
He heated up.
I want to make that clear. I'm not anti.
He heated up, but you just...
I don't necessarily care. I like him as a person. I wouldn't be sad to see him not be on the field.
I think it's interesting to see what version of Jeff McNeil we would get, right? We saw him be ice cold in the first half. We saw him really heat up in the second half to the point where, I mean, he was having a good second half, like legitimately hot second half before his injury. Now, he got injured and he didn't swing a bat for a few weeks it was a few weeks there, a few months. I don't know what version of him we're going to get. If it's the ice cold Jeff McNeil, then you will catch me on this same podcast in game 6 of this series if he makes the roster saying that Jeff McNeil sucks. So I'm warning everyone about that now. But if it is second half Jeff McNeil and the guy that we saw in years prior, Jeff McNeil, that, is a good contact hitter, can provide you good defense up the middle, and I know the defense up the middle has been good. I don't want to see Jose Iglesias get less playing time.
But that's what I was going to say. So where is he going? I don't want to see Iglesias get literally a lick less playing time than he's already getting. To me, and that's the only place Jeff McNeil is going to go.
But he's more valuable than Ottavino. Ottavino has provided next to nothing. So if it's Ottavino or if Jeff McNeil, I'm a Jeff McNeil advocate. And you know what else? I know that at times this year when he was having a rough first half, he seems miserable, he seems whatever, not good vibes. I'm going to say it. He is a part of this core, I feel as though, that's come up with Nimmo and Alonso, and he's been with the Mets for years and years and on this roller coaster ride. So a part of me would be sad to see if Jeff McNeil, left off the NLCS roster, if they, somehow clinch to the next step, which I will keep referring to as a superstition. For Jeff McNeil not to be there, a healthy Jeff McNeil, a part of that to me would seem wrong.
I agree with that. From it's the right thing to do standpoint.
Sure.
Do I think he's earned it? Absolutely. I think he deserves to be there, and I think he's earned to be there. I just from a playing perspective right now, until I really saw what he had to offer, it'd be hard for me to think of really anybody who I'd want him to replace, not only in the lineup, but even on the field.
I mean, and it's not just at that perspective. That's not the only argument I'm making, that he's been around this team for a while and he's one of their guys that's been there forever. To me, Ottavino's useless, in my opinion. I mean, Mendoza does not trust Ottavino. Everybody knows that the only situation Mendoza is bringing Ottavino in a game is a blowout. He's accepted whichever result either way. He's accepted that he's winning the game or that he's losing the game.
That is the only time
that you see Adam Ottavino.
I know, it really is.
Useless.
No, so
useless.
that's why I'm saying I'm not I'm comfortable with that.
Sure.
I don't really care. Bring him along for the trip and the celebrations. Fine.
Sure.
So I'm cool. I'm cool with that. And I agree with you definitely on this part. I just don't think that Ottavino is really bringing a whole lot. Yep. I definitely think that, not having him there would really it would be a non-factor. It wouldn't matter to me.
I understand. Tell us what you guys think.
Yeah, definitely let us know. Maybe that's the question of the week is, do you want Jeff McNeil on this roster? Yes or no? Why or why not? As far as anything else on this matchup in particular, I think it's also important to point out what it is, if we're going to talk about the Dodgers and their strengths, what it is that the Mets have. We talked about the hitters. She's like, I'd love to.
Well, love to.
The Mets, I could talk about that. We talked about, some of the starting pitcher depth and what they're able to bring there. I also just think you have to say it, which this is going to lead into a broader discussion I'd like to have about what I believe to be America's team at this point in time. But the Mets have the momentum. That really matters. They have won 6 of 9 games dating back to September 30th, the doubleheader against the Atlanta Braves. They are fun. They have charisma.
Oh, are they fun? Well documented.
and I truly, truly believe this. I really think that at this point in time, unless you are rooting for any of the teams that still have a chance here, you should be rooting for the New York Mets. You really should be. The only other team that I actually am curious if you agree with me, so maybe I won't say it yet. But this is the team I'm thinking of is already out. Is there a team that's already out that you felt like besides the Mets, that's a really good story, I'd feel comfortable rooting for them, or I like what I see here? I'm just curious. If not, it's totally fine.
I think this is the answer that you have too. I think it was the Tigers.
Yes.
Okay.
That's who I was thinking of. I respected that. I liked that story. It was sort of a similar feeling to the Mets, right? They were in a spot where no one thought they would make the playoffs. According to Fangraphs calculations, they had a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs at some point in time.
In my opinion,
that is a great story.
The Tigers were the Mets of the American League.
100%.
Yeah.
There was just no denying that. It was all the same thing. They were down. They were plenty of games back. No chance of really making it. Somehow make it. That's a team I'd root for. But now they got booted. It's time to get on the Mets ship now, okay?
As did the
Mets
Padres.
Right. Right.
Wait, sorry, not to cut off that thought,
No,
but
go.
this is my brain processing
Tell
that
me.
of the 4 teams that are left, right? Final 4, by the way, how crazy that. Sometimes you have to quantify this in terms of numbers, like the New York Mets being in the Final 4, just insane. Of the Final 4 teams remaining, the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Guardians. Now, the Guardians, they're hungry too. I'm not going to say that they're not because they are. But of those 4 teams remaining, to me, and this is not the Mets bias speaking to me, this is the truth, the Mets have the energy. The Mets are the train running down the tracks that you can't stop out of those 4 teams. I thought the Padres had some of it. I thought the Tigers had some of it. Both of those teams no longer with us.
They had the magic, and their magic ran out. So at
The
this
Mets had the most magic, I think, but...
The Mets are magical. I actually agree. Okay, so the Guardians, and I wrote this down because I thought this is important, and I knew some people would come at me. I appreciate, out of all of those teams, if it wasn't the Mets, then I would say, okay, root for the Guardians. I saw something today that said there's no franchise left in baseball that has gone longer without winning the World Series than Cleveland. They have been titleless since 1948. And let me just jump ahead of it. I know that 5 franchises have never won, so don't come at me. I understand what's happening here. However, beyond that, I mean, the Dodgers, in my eyes, that's just the villain team. That's like the team that you expect to win, the team that has recently won, the team that has the most money in baseball, the largest payroll. I'm just besides maybe Shohei Ohtani, okay, the whole 50-50 thing, not a whole lot of lore there that I'm feeling like I need to back up.
I'm gonna say
and then the Yankees. What do I need to say?
The Yankees and the Dodgers and that whole thing, tired. The Mets, and I will say the Guardians, wired. Tired and wired, all right? The Yankees and the Dodgers are tired. I'm just going to say it. And you know what? I think regardless of what Major League Baseball, literally 2 thumbs down. Regardless of what Major League Baseball may or may not want as its World Series, right? What gets you ratings as the World Series? Probably Dodgers and Yankees because they have so many bandwagon fans that don't really love the team, that are just the big market, whatever. I won't go down that ramble. But you know what's unique and what's fun? Mets and Guardians, all right? Although a Subway Series would be a delight too. I'm not going to say it wouldn't be. A Subway Series would be delight. And honestly, I picked the Mets in that situation. We can get into that at a later time if we get closer to that occurring. But what?
I just feel like we should take one beat on it now because it hasn't happened yet.
On the potential of a Subway
I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
I really think what you said is so true. Honestly, I hope and I truly pray that it is the end. I pray to Grimace. I pray to Jose Iglesias, and I pray to OMG
and Pitbull
and Seymour Wiener.
and
that the Yankees are the ones who make it to the World Series.
Yeah, I do too. I don't want to play the Guardians for reasons that we've cited.
I pray it's the Yankees. I will say this, the one interesting thing about the Yankees, and I really feel like even a lot of Yankees fans would feel this way, so let me know if I'm wrong. I am curious. I was actually shocked to see the Yankees made it this far.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
felt like for a large part of the season, they had 2 guys who were great generational talents, and everyone else sucked.
I thought the Royals were going to have their number.
Right.
And then they didn't, and that's baseball.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if that's the matchup, I feel like the Yankees are, from an energy standpoint, lifeless compared to these New York Mets.
No, I'm gonna say it. I, at this point, am rooting for a Subway Series World Series because I don't want to play the Guardians, and that's what I think. The Guardians, to me, the Mets have also had the underdog bit here all year long, right there. The Mets, they've been so come back from so much and the adversity and all that. Which, by the way, I do have and all that. I do have to say, I feel as though I have to point out that the New York Mets also have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, so it is a little bit funny to hear the whole underdog bit. I know you know that. I'm just saying it for the commenters that are sure to say it. It's just funny to have them be such the underdog because they also have a very rich owner at this point. Moving forward, if the Mets were to play the Guardians, and now we're getting ahead of ourselves, so we actually need to move off this conversation because it's making me nervous because we're jinxing it. Anyways, if the Mets were to play the Guardians, all of a sudden, right, you said it, they've gone the longest of anybody without winning a World Series. The Mets are all of a sudden not really your underdogs there. I want the Mets to be the underdogs. I like their little role. They know one part, one character, and they're good at it.
That's the only character they're ever going to be. Listen, I know y'all. I'll look in the camera when I say this. Uncle Stevie has some money. I knew that when I brought up the Dodgers thing, and I still know that now.
Yep.
But it's still, right, compared to the Yankees, and you just look at the track records. And you just, no one, I really believe this. I feel like very few people want to root for the person that's always the winner. And it would really work in the Mets' favor if they are the ones who are still in that role of that underdog.
When I meet a Yankees fan, I'm just like, you know, I don't even know what to equate this to, but you just meet someone who's just been very privileged and very sheltered their whole life. Like when I meet a Yankees fan, I'm like, all right, so you don't know ball. Like you've never really gone through anything. You've never struggled and you've never had to pick yourself up and keep going.
You don't know ball.
You don't know ball. I'm sure there are Yankees fans that know ball. Don't come at me. But it's just to me, I look at them a little bit and I'm like, you have never been through anything ever. You've never struggled and you've never pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. Thank you. Good night.
Your bootstraps. Wait, you know who it really makes me think of something. You know who I feel like would be a Mets fan?
Who?
Lisa from Long Island.
Absolute Mets fan. She's never a Yankees fan. No.
Like she's been through things.
Yes.
She buried her father buried her husband in the hills. Please. We won't get into all that. I'm just saying.
If you know, you know. There's a lot of people that probably were not here for that.
I know. Actually, good time to say before we wrap things up, if you are just joining us, thank you so much because we really appreciate your support and we have seen our subscriber count ramping up over the past few weeks. We are both sports reporters in Syracuse, New York. So we are broadcasters here. We cover the Syracuse Orange and we also do this because we're really huge Mets fans, and we have the AAA Syracuse Mets team in our backyard.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for joining us. As always, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, any social media that you use, or YouTube. The handle's all the same, @YMetsPod. Any final thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up.
I think, look, this is the obvious. I think it benefits the Mets to get off to a hot start in any of these series. I feel as though the most valuable games to win are Game 1 and obviously, when you get to the end, that's the obvious. But I think Game 1 is the most valuable game, maybe followed by Game 3. Like in the midst of, I feel like it's those Game 5, obviously, but Game 1 to me really sets the tone for how the series, if you have a clunker of a Game 1, it's hard to recover from that. So tomorrow night, Sunday night, I hope that we see the New York Mets, and I know they will, come out with the same fire that we've seen from them all season long. I really believe at this point, stats and analytics and all of that aside, that the Mets are a runaway train that is down the tracks. They lost the brakes. Like the brakes were tossed out miles ago. They don't know where they are. I hope that continues to be true throughout this series. The Dodgers are a very good team. They were a very good team all year long. They are dangerous, and we'll see. I know that whole World Series discussion was too soon. That was probably too preliminary, and I hope that we did not jinx anything. We'll see how it goes. I think we'll have a better picture of all this.
Superstitious?
Yes. I'm a Mets fan. I mean, come on. We'll have a better picture of this after Sunday and Monday, games 1 and 2. How are you feeling? Like going into this series, how do you feel?
I feel light. Like I literally just feel light.
Whimsical,
I feel weightless.
Whimsy.
I'm not even kidding. I don't know why. I know people will be upset with me that I said this if it doesn't work out, but I'm not superstitious like that. Like I feel like the Mets are going to go to the World Series and I feel like they're going to win. I know. Wait, look at her face. Look at her face.
Me looking at the camera with a horrified expression. Maybe I think that in my deepest, darkest heart of hearts, but I don't say it.
She looks at me like I can't say that. I'm going to say it. Sorry.
Be quiet. It's a secret that we all have. We're all thinking it, but no one's saying it.
I'm saying it.
All right.
Come at me if you need to. There is no better place to set the tone, sincerely, than Sunday Night Baseball, and we take it game by game, and I know that. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We will see you back here after for a recap of Game 1. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. We'll see you back here next time.